What's up, YouTube? Sergeant Blake is back for a Monday video, which is, of course, about an old game. One of my favorites, Dead Space. Dead Space is a semi-popular game because a lot of people who play it end up liking it, but a lot of people don't really ever hear about it. So this is my chance to get it out there. It came out in '08, so if you want to go buy this after you see this video, then it should be pretty cheap. You know, Craigslist or fucking GameStop or whatever you feel. So Dead Space is a horror game, a survival horror game. It's out in space, obviously. You're on this space shuttle, this giant ship called the USG Ishimura, and it's basically a mining shuttle. It's used to break open planets and mine out all of their resources because planet Earth at this point in time has already been depleted of that. And you get there much later, like in the process of the planet crack, and as an engineer named Isaac Clarke, and your whole purpose is to fix the ship so it's up and running because communications with the ship have been lost. And as soon as you get there, a bunch of shit hits the fan, and you find yourself in a survival horror situation with some very grotesque monsters and lots of scary things. I'd say that this game is probably one of my favorites because it's definitely one of the most scary games this generation. This generation hasn't seen much in the way of survival horror genre. Resident Evil was definitely a switch into the action game. It's been like that since Resident Evil 4. But other than, I think, Siren Blood Curse for the PSN, and I'm sure that there's some sort of, other attempts at survival horror. I think that this one would probably be the most successful. It's a very good game. It's got, I think that the best parts about Dead Space is definitely the sound. The sound design in this game was some of the best I've heard, and of course, I'm sure that they went to great lengths and, used very obscure objects to get some of those sounds across, but, you turn it up, you put it on 5.1, or I don't even have 5.1, but just two little shitty speakers, and you really feel like you're in the game. I mean, I think that's a bullshit statement, but it's really good sound. I think that it's some of the best that I've heard, I think, if not the best. Also, the beauty of the game looks perfect. I mean, for a game that came out so long ago, the graphics were, I guess, very, top of the line. And they still are, technically, especially among other games. So, I don't want to discuss the story a lot, because there's lots of different twists and turns and things that I could tell you that might even, tip you off to the end. But it's a very, interesting story. And the way it works is basically, and this is kind of how the mission structure goes, is that as soon as you get off, you're with people, and then eventually you get split up, and they just start giving you shit to do. And that's pretty much the entire game. Is that you're just like a gopher guy. You do this, you do this, you do this. They tell you what to do, and you keep going. And as that can be quite aggravating, it is kind of like the way the story moves along. And on your journeys through this ship, you do see quite a few interesting and scary things. I think that one of the best parts about Dead Space, along with the sound and the gameplay, which is obviously awesome. I don't want to go into that in depth because it's just good gameplay. I don't think I could really describe it. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's much in the same way of Gears of War, but you're not going to be going around blasting every enemy to bits. You're actually going to be running a lot, lots of running out of ammo, situations like that. So one of my favorite parts about Dead Space, other than the gameplay and other than the way it looks and sounds, is also the way the challenge that it gives you. Like I mentioned previously, is that you're going to be running out of ammo constantly. And as long as you don't buy any of the DLC as soon as you get it, I'd suggest that if you get the game and then immediately go to your PlayStation Store or Xbox Live Marketplace and buy the DLC, then don't use that until after you finish the game at least once, because you're really robbing yourself of the experience. A lot of the things that can be bought on DLC will give you extra armor and stuff that you shouldn't have immediately, at the very beginning of your playthrough. So if you're going to do all of that, definitely do that after you finish the game once. Now, as I was saying about the actual challenge that it provides, enemies do take quite a few shots to kill. In some situations, you get a lot of different guns, but a lot of the time you're just trying to manage things between how much ammo you have and the spaces that you have in your inventory. And, as it's not a huge deal, especially in the beginning, but especially later on in the game. But in the beginning, you get maybe 10 spots to hold in your inventory, and as you upgrade your suit, which costs money, you get more and more. but it's just a very challenging thing to be worried about. You know, I have two, especially in the beginning, like I said before. I've got two weapons. One of them is out of ammo, and the other one is like, you know, almost there. And then as you find more weapons and you don't have spaces in your inventory, it's more or less I've got 4 weapons, but I don't have enough space to carry all the ammo, health items, air canisters because you do a little bit of walking outside of the ship, and stasis packs, which is a different thing I'm not going to go into. The upgrade system is quite interesting in Dead Space. The way it works is that throughout the game, you'll pick up these things called power nodes, and you find workbenches all laid out across the levels, and you go up to this workbench, and in the game you kind of just, you know, select the power node and put it in, blah blah blah. But the way it works is that every gun has like a upgrade tree. Some upgrades have spots that fix like, or that upgrade damage and the time it takes to reload, the rate of fire, blah 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 blah. And then there are other spaces that are just kind of blank. So every time you do it, it's kind of like a puzzle to make sure that you're using your power nodes in the most effective way. Because you can kind of like pick and choose what you want to upgrade, and if you do it correctly, you can actually avoid quite a few blank spots. And power nodes are very expensive, $10,000 or 10,000 credits or whatever the fuck. So the horror experience, you know, I told you that the game was very good looking, the sound was really good. Is it scary? You know, I think that the worst part about Dead Space is trying to play it again immediately after you finish, because you're definitely like, you're in the zone, you're ready to play it again, and you kind of like already know what's going to scare you. So Dead Space is very scary initially, the first playthrough especially. There are lots of, you know, loud noises, bits and bobs and surprises, blah blah blah, but there are also just incredibly intimidating either numbers, like you got a lot of enemies, or just like incredibly intimidating looking creatures. They're very scary looking. They're very just mean. It's just mean, horrible. And I think that another thing that kind of puts you in the horror thing is that if you die, they don't really, you know, censor anything. It's very, very mean the way these creatures will rip you apart. But all in all, Dead Space, definitely one of my favorite games. It's won a couple of awards, maybe 2 or 3, and it's definitely been looked at as one of the more underappreciated games of 2008 and just this generation. A lot of people, but it has been successful. So if you haven't played it, definitely go out, pick it up, rent it, whatever you want. It's not too quick. It takes a couple of days to finish, but if you're dedicated to it, it could take anywhere from like 4 to 5 days. But definitely pick it up, check it out. You know, it's definitely one of my favorites. So you know you're not getting it from some 12-year-old kid who says it was okay. It's a really good game, and it's definitely worth checking out. It's at least a go out and rent it, but personally, it's one of my favorites, so I like to keep my favorite games. Alright guys, that's it for today. Tomorrow I'll be back for whatever seems to be interesting in the news, and then Wednesday will be the news, and then Thursday will be game night again. So talk to you later guys. Bye.